Some big news about a potential rail strike. Now, just to remind you of how we got to this place, there was initially a presidential board recommendation that was rejected by rail workers to keep them working. Then there was a compromise deal that was struck between the rail bosses and the union leadership. That was a tentative agreement. And there was a lot of celebration in the media. These were talks led by like Biden and his team. A lot of celebration in the media of like, oh, that's it, rail strike averted, we're good to go. Well, the workers themselves have a say in that, because even though their leadership might have agreed to this tentative agreement, they ultimately have to vote and sign off on it as well. And I think there's something like 13 different rail unions which are involved. And if any one of them says, no, this is not good enough for us, and let's be clear, the provisions in it were only marginally better than what had been offered previously, that means they would likely all strike in solidarity. And we now have, let's put this up on the screen from Jonah Furman, BMWE, that's the third largest of the rail unions, has rejected that railroad company's tentative agreement. The vote was 56% and set an earliest possible strike date of November 19th. Jonah says this is huge. This alone is a huge deal, since a BMWE strike would shut down the national rail freight system, but also makes me wonder if it'll affect the two bigger union votes. Ballots for BLET and Smart TD rail workers mail out on October 15th and are due back November 17th. So the two largest rail unions have yet to vote on this as well. So what Jonah's saying here is like seeing this sign from the third largest rail union that their members rejected it may embolden them to also reject it as well. Now, in terms of the political consequences, Biden basically effectively accomplished what he really wanted to, which was to kick all of this down past the midterm elections. Obviously would not be good for Democrats if you had a whole, shutdown of the nation's freight rail systems and all of the catastrophic cascading consequences that would ensue if that were to ultimately occur. So we're talking about, in pushing this out to the earliest possible of November 19th. But I just want to make it really clear to people, like, this was not a done deal. The rank and file members do get a say, and so far, there are indications that they are none too impressed.
Well, that was what you always warned, is you're like, hey, just because this is deals happen doesn't mean that it's over. And that's, of course, media lost interest immediately, whenever the immediate ramifications. But, it might still happen, and all they had to do was reject it at a pretty sizable rate.
Yeah.
And even the deal itself, we didn't know all the details, Krystal, but all these guys were asking for was like paid sick leave. Like, once again, it's not crazy. It's like we should frame their demands in a very reasonable expectation. And I'd probably reject it if I was them too. Especially when you have this much leverage. So we'll see how the political system reacts. I'm not sure how they will.
Yeah, and the other piece to keep in mind of this is that so rail labor is governed by its own set of laws, specifically because any shutdown of the rail system obviously is an extraordinary event and really detrimental to the economy and all of those things. So you have all of these sort of like levers and loopholes that they have to jump through in order to get to the place where they actually could strike. So one of the final ways this could all be short-circuited is if Congress came in and they could pass a deal and say, this is it, and that's the end of the story. So back when Biden and the rail bosses and the union leaders were negotiating, there was a real effort from Republicans and quite a few Democrats too to say, let's just force them to take the presidential, it's called the PEB. Let's just force them to take that deal, which was really bad and really favorable to the rail bosses. And basically Bernie Sanders said, no, we're not going forward with that. And then this tentative agreement was able to be struck, which pushed things down the road. But, if you have a different Congress, if things happen in the midterms, you could still see a possibility where Congress is like, no, we're just going to cram down this deal that you guys have rejected and that you don't want because it's more important to us to keep the railways operating than it is ultimately to resolve these worker concerns, which have been lingering for years and years.
Yeah, I agree. Look, we'll see how it goes. My feeling is, unfortunately, I think Congress probably would take that step, especially post-midterm.
Probably.
Right? Why would they listen? And they would just try to avert the strike by essentially forcing these guys to work and take like one paid day off. What is it, one paid month?
Oh, it's crazy.
One a day?
Yeah. And we're not talking about like weekends and one night.
Right.
No.
Like
there are no
one
weekends.
day.
It's like literally one day. Yeah. All right, guys, we'll continue to follow it because this is far from resolved, and we'll have more for you guys later. Cable news is ripping us apart, dividing the country, making it impossible to function as a society, and making it impossible to know just what is true and what is false. But the good news is they are failing and they know it.
That is why we're building something new, a new mainstream, a healthier one, something more trustworthy, something that we are going to need in one of the most pivotal times in American history. We are building up here for the midterms, for the upcoming presidential election, but we need your help. So if you can help us out by becoming a premium member today at breakingpoints.com, we're trying to change America for the better and the entire world.
So what are you waiting for, guys? Go to breakingpoints.com and sign up and help us build a new mainstream.